Hello everyone. I never make drama videos, but I am making a rare exception here because I think this one speaks to a much larger political theme that is deeply important in our discourse, if we can call it that. Some of you would have tuned into my debate last week on Indigenous issues, mass graves, and church burnings. It was myself and Counterpoints versus Lance from the Serfs and an Indigenous YouTuber named Tale of Twin Rabbits. The result of that debate is now Connor and I are being summoned to The Hague to answer for crimes against humanity because what we did to them apparently is considered a genocide by the UN. No, but seriously, if you ask anyone, left or right, the consensus is that we wiped the floor with them. And you know what? My ability to not rub it in afterwards died well after the third time I was asked to prove a negative that debate. So if you want to spend the next few hours laughing until your lungs don't work, I would highly recommend watching the reviews of the debate. And if you want to keep wheezing after that, try reading what Lefty Twitter thought of it. Here's a sample. Showing my normie in-laws the Lance versus Lauren debate to see how it's perceived by not terminally online people. Halfway through, they didn't even know Lauren was a fascist until I told them. They thought she was a boss-ass bitch. This was an absolute travesty of optics. They're both left-leaning Bernie supporters. Just gonna point it out, but when left-leaning people listen to me outside of the insane narrative vacuum online, they don't think I'm anything near a fascist. And that's probably because, hint, I'm not a fascist. The tweets and the squawks of extremely online vultures notwithstanding. Fortunately, this debate was such a catastrophe for progressives that for some of them it actually punched through the mirage of narrative-driven panic they'd been fed about the right. I am starting to worry that a lot of the info given by leftist creators is all wrong. I was unironically moved to the right after Lance's dog shit performance. Not, of course, that you would know any of this from reading Lance's Twitter page, which exists in the same bizarre alternate universe where dozens of churches burn themselves down all at once across Canada because of improper storage of incense. And no, I am not being deliberately absurd. Lance's debate partner actually said that.
It turned out that it was the area where the priests keep the incense and the anointing oil, because for some reason, I don't know why, this particular group of priests is just not aware that you probably shouldn't have an open flame next to flammable oil. And so this is the 5th time that the fire department has been called out. So I would have liked to see you discuss, for example, why it is that Canadian churches seem to be exempt from fire codes or be aware that fire extinguishers have been invented.
That's fascinating, Tale. So your current assertion is that all the fucking churches that burned down in Canada over the past 2 years was accidental, and Catholic priests, on top of being fucking pedos and fucking Native American beaters, are fucking dog shit at fucking fire safety. That's what you want to contribute to this fucking conversation right now?
I'm contributing to you the facts as they stand. If you have a problem with the facts as they stand, that's your problem.
I have problems with the fucking facts because you keep doing this meta conversation bullshit that has fucking nothing to do with what's going on.
Fully mature people acknowledge that sometimes a priest can accidentally set fire to his own church, rather than scream at the person who says that it happened.
What is even happening? We'll put a pin in that for now. But anyway, in the alternate reality where Lance's Twitter feed lives, not only did I get absolutely wrecked in the debate, but I ran away from the debate before it even began. How can anyone believe that, you may ask? Well, because Lance posted a single 2-minute clip from the very end of our discussion when he used his allocated closing statement to cram every single slanderous accusation ever made against me in the history of my life. All at the time that I couldn't respond. Hey guys. Okay, so while I would love to do debunks of every single thing Lance has said in this rant, that would be a very long video. And I also don't want to make it too easy for him, since I am still hoping we will have a longer conversation. And you know what? If he's going to say false things, he can do the research. He can try to back them up and find absolutely nothing to do so. So just for this, I'm going to put little question marks over every demonstrably false claim he makes.
Yeah, I don't think there can be any restorative justice as long as the people responsible aren't taking claims for the actions they've done. If I could use a simile, it's kind of like you, Lauren Southern, because ultimately, if you had spent your career rising to become one of the darling children of the alt-right, palling around with people like Brittany Pettibone, Richard Spencer, touring around the globe with someone like, let's say, Stefan Molyneux, who is well known for measuring the skulls of black and white people, spreading the Great Replacement conspiracy, spreading the Great Genocide conspiracy theory, then going on tour spreading both of those conspiracy theories, in addition to going to join that far-right nationalist group, First Europa, and then joining them by shooting flares at immigrants, and doing all of this while at the same time all of it bubbles over and boils over to the point where at the end of the day you ultimately led to one of the people contributing towards the Christchurch shooting, who declared that the Great Replacement theory was one of the reasons why they committed the atrocity that they did. Afterwards,
You
took everything
pussy.
back.
You fucking pussy.
Afterwards,
Bringing this
you took
all up at
everything
the
back.
end so I don't have a chance to respond.
You
Wait,
can respond.
you little bitch.
I'm
you're
more than
lying.
glad.
Okay, Lance, finish, and then I'm out, and you two can eat each other alive if you want.
Sounds
Lance,
good.
okay. Lance, you gonna finish?
Yeah, I'll finish. And then turning the whole thing around to suddenly say that you're going to rebrand yourself as this wonderful new centrist and everything's wonderful and that you write children's books now and it's all ooh-woo and everything's good now and nothing bad ever happened. I think if you wanted to achieve restorative justice when it came all of this stuff, then what you had to do was simply acknowledge any of the bad things you've done in the past, but you haven't. Talk to me. I'm staying right here. I'm not going anywhere.
7,000 accusations at me and then ask me to respond to them. That's great. Connor and I are going to have a chat with my chat, and if you want to not be a bitch boy and have a full conversation another time, we can do that, and we'll arrange that.
Okay. You all have a pleasant afternoon, okay?
I'm right here, Lauren. You don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to go talk to Connor.
So in other words, after 2 hours of losing on the merits, and after every single one of us had already given our 2-minute closing on the actual subject of the debate, Lance completely ignored the topic and just resorted to cheap, demonstrably false character assassination. Luckily, anyone who actually watched the full conversation thought this was pathetic behavior, though ironically, the simile he was trying to use and then abandoned mid-statement was far more accurate than I think he even realized. He said that my refusing to admit to my supposed wrongdoing was comparable to Canada whitewashing its own history. And he said this after Connor and I had just spent 2 hours proving that he and his partner were lying about Canada's history if they knew anything about it at all. So yes, Lance, you are correct. I am just like the Canadian government in that you've asserted a bunch of ill-researched, hysterical, disingenuous lies about me, of which I refuse to admit to any of. So, well done. You got me. But being a hysterical, disingenuous liar, Lance, of course, didn't bother with context. He just released the 2-minute clip of him trash-talking me in order to make it look like he won. And I am very sorry to say that it worked. Briefly. Lauren could do nothing but run off. She pulled the "my planet needs me" excuse at the end. She is bailing when confronted like Cold Feet Crowder. Sorry, but no. The truth is that I had just endured the most mind-numbing 2 hours of my life debating with two people who resembled a chicken playing chess, kicking all the pieces over and shitting all over the board while pretending they had won. Lance knew he could get away with his whole little shenanigans at the end of the conversation because I had clearly stated I had to leave well before I heard his little rant.
Well, I just wanted to ask the room if you wanted to end it here or if you wanted to keep it going. I could go for maybe another 10 minutes max.
Yeah, I
Fair
need to
enough.
wrap up soon too. Like, this dude knew what he was doing. I don't know about other streamers, but I don't have 7 hours in my day to just sit around debating people. I actually have a child who needs me, and a family. However, that certainly doesn't mean I was lying when I said I wanted to set up a debate on the topic for another time. Quite the opposite. I did want to have that debate, and I still want to have that debate. But I am now quite confident that Lance doesn't. I know this because I've been trying to set up a debate with him for the last 2 days, and the results have not been pretty. I've reached out, I've sent him an email, I sent him this tweet. Hey, Serfs TV, I know your audience have asked you to stop debating. However, I wanted to hold you to our Debate 2.0 hosted by @TheOmniLiberal. Surprise, surprise, Lance said no to that.
Yeah, no, I'm not doing that. She's already directed all the terms of service, all right? I've done every single thing she's asked.
And for some reason felt the need to pretend he didn't say no, then claimed he could not have it hosted by Destiny because Destiny said he donated to Hamas, whatever. Yeah, Lance, you know what? False accusations suck, don't they? If it's false, I'm gonna have to look into that one. But okay, no Destiny, no worries. We'll figure this out. But wait, he doesn't want to mod at all. And you know what? Like, I find that kind of weird. It kind of seems like the person in the relationship who says, no, we can't go to a counselor. We can't have them observing what we're doing. It kind of seems like he just wants to argue in bad faith, mute me, and talk over me with no one to hold him to account. But you know what? Even so, I am a merciful debate opponent, and I shall accommodate. So I made him another offer. Lance happens to be in Vancouver at the moment, so am I. If he really wants to 1v1 no mod debate where he can call me out to my face, let's skip the whole stream thing and do this in person. That's what he wants, right? That's what he said he wanted. Well, apparently not. He said no to that as well. Why do you keep changing the terms of debate, Lauren? I didn't. You just said you'd be happy to do a 1v1 with me as long as it's not on Destiny's stream. This is a 1v1, not on Destiny's stream. But you have said no, Lance, because as I suspected, and as I suspect about most of the people who make completely slanderous accusations about me, you could never say it to my face. Never. Never in your life. Because you're spineless. And that was obvious to everyone when you used the last minute of a debate on Indigenous issues, something you apparently care about seriously, just to call me names. I really got to give it to the lefties, though. They've actually, a lot of them have actually called this out and held their own to account. So you used the genocide of Indigenous Canadians as a political prop to lure Lauren Southern into a debate just to dunk on her? Did you have to pretend to care about Indigenous issues to farm content, views, and social credit? Has all of your coverage on this just been a huge grift? Yes, Anthony, it has been. But it is worse. It is so much worse than that. Let's do something that this debate has proven is really very dangerous. Let's assume Lance is sincere about his arguments for a second. Let's assume he really does believe that I am this closeted Nazi queen trying to infect the public square with my fascist ideology under the cover of enlightened centrism. I'm not, but just for the sake of argument, let's say he really believes that I am. Put yourself in his shoes. If you had the chance to confront someone you regarded as that devious and unrepentantly evil on a subject as important as the genocide of an entire race of people, what would you do? I can only speak for myself, but if I were in that position, I would research the hell out of the topic. I would try to anticipate every possible argument that my opponent might make. I would make sure I had every minute detail of their past wrongdoings memorized, so when it came time to confront them about that past, I would do it chapter and verse with receipts aplenty. After all, for all I know, I might never get a chance to confront this person again. I have to make it count. And if by some miracle my antagonist offered me the opportunity to talk solely about their past in a second debate, I would not only leap at it, but I would make doubly sure I had every salacious detail about them and the unsavory shenanigans they were up to. In short, I'd treat it like being a prosecutor who gets to cross-examine the defendant in a celebrity murder trial as if this was my one and only shot to nail this guilty monster to the wall. Did Lance do any of this? No. He half-assed the research on the topic of our debate so badly that he walked in without even knowing basic facts. But worse than that, he didn't even get the details of the slander against me right. For one example of many, Lance accused me of palling around with First Europa. This is the first time a leftist has ever even accused me of that, considering First Europa doesn't exist anywhere outside Lance's own head. I mean, if I had to guess, I would assume that Lance took the first from the Trumpist political slogan, America First, and the Europa from Identity Europa, an alt-right youth movement, and just mixed them together into a non-existent political organization, which I assume he probably meant generation identity. But fine. If Lance wants me to denounce First Europa as a form of restorative justice, I will do it. Just as soon as somebody founds it. But seriously, this is the level of research he did. Trying to nail someone who he apparently wrongly believes is one of the most slippery crypto-fascists on the internet. A level of research so bad that he couldn't even get the very public, widely spread name of an organization right in a pre-written, pre-prepared statement. So you can't even blame that on, like, stumble of the mind. Why, if he can't even get a tiny detail like that right, should anyone take anything he says seriously? Why should they believe there was even an iota of research or thought put into this? Forget just telling the truth. Why should anyone believe this man is even capable of knowing the truth? At best, he's just too lazy to check that he actually knows his own side's arguments, and at worst, he's too deluded to keep his own talking points straight. Either way, this is not someone you can or should rely on as a source for news and politics. But my friends, there is no mercy, truly. It somehow gets even worse than that. Again, let's assume Lance and his teammate truly believe I am this ingenious, hidden white supremacist. Yet somehow, in spite of my supposed white nationalism, I spent literally the entire debate agreeing that what happened to Indigenous people in Canada was an atrocity, and it was, even if I did contest the details for accuracy's sake of how far things went. I was able to acknowledge the legitimacy of their grievances and show empathy for why those grievances matter. Were Lance and his partner able to do the same about what was bothering me and Connor? Were they able to empathize with our grief over churches of our faith being burned down, probably by people on their own side? Well, remember how Lance's partner claimed that the church burnings in Canada happened because the priests all at once accidentally set fire to the incense inside? Remember how I said to put a pin in that? Well, take that pin right out. Because even Destiny, who is no friend of the right or conservative Christian worldviews, called that argument tantamount to Holocaust denial.
Incense and the anointing oil, because for some reason, I don't know why, this particular group of priests is just not aware that you probably shouldn't have an open flame next to flammable oil.
Wait, he's actually, this is like tantamount to Holocaust denialism. Is that really what he's doing right now? Is he going to try to claim that like all of this is fake? That there aren't really any churches that are actually being burned down right now? I think the day after that first mass burial site, wasn't there like, there were literally like, somebody linked it in chat, there were like 4 that were burned down like that very first fucking day.
Destiny was able to call that argument out for the counterfactual psychopathic dismissal that it was. But Lance wasn't. Lance stayed silent, accused us of being condescending when we called his deluded scumbag partner out, and whined that even bringing up the church burnings at all was taking attention away from Indigenous people, when everyone short of an insane person should know that one person's pain does not cancel out another person's. In other words, despite wrapping themselves in the mantle of empathy for those who are suffering, Lance and his partner showed less empathy in this debate than someone who they believe to be a Nazi. Apparently, they couldn't even fake empathy in order to defeat someone they think is that evil. And this is why Lance calls me a grifter, a liar, and an apologist for atrocities. It is not delusion, it is projection. He is accusing me of those things because that is very clearly what he is. And you know what? If he wants to prove me wrong and show that I really am this fascist he claims I am, then I will still offer him the opportunity face to face, like he said he wanted. And no, Lance, my face is not a computer screen. But you know what? I don't expect him to take it. I expect him to run and crawl back to the rancid, verminous hug box he calls an audience and drown himself in cope. My audience may wonder why I am wasting so much time on this. And fair question, guys. I have tormented you enough with this subject. But, aside from it all being darkly comical, this is a perfect example of how easily human interaction becomes warped by barricading yourself behind your keyboard. Cowards like Lance wilt in the face of humanity and reality. They cower behind their screens because only there can they wrap themselves in the safe cocoon of their narrative. To touch grass, let alone to face their own lives, would break that worldview they concocted. Because even if you transfigure a person into a monster on the internet, your spell breaks the instant they log off. They go back to being human, and you, well, you are left with only the soul that you have poisoned by lying about them. That is no way to live. That is no way to be human. But you know what? Even if the hole you dug yourself into is so deep, even ground-penetrating radar can't detect it, I am someone who truly believes, even if begrudgingly sometimes, that if your political worldview does not include redemption, then it is doomed. Because we all need it. The only people who believe they don't need redemption are people who think they've hid their skeletons well enough. So even if I am absolutely beyond irritated, and I think rightly so with the degree of pathetic dismissals and ad homs endured, I genuinely do hope Lance chooses to consider and improve with new information he's presented and grow as a person rather than reject it altogether due to pride. And I, well imperfect myself, try to do the same. So Lance, I hope you're open to meeting me face to face. I have absolutely nothing to hide. So I'll be waiting. And to everyone else, I'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in.